So, hey family, welcome to episode 6 of Nadine's Dose of Inspiration. Listen, you already know the deal, right? So you're going to share this with people. If you haven't subscribed, you're going to make sure you subscribe. Those are from all my YouTube family, Apple Podcasts, as well as Spotify. Make sure you subscribe there and then make sure you hit the notification. I want to dive right into this, but before we dive into this, I got to do two things, right? I have to make sure that, first of all, shout out to Mississippi. Mississippi told me I need to shout them out, so I'm shouting out Mississippi. I think I've pretty much covered those that have been tuning in from different states and countries and all of that. Over the past several weeks, I've been shouting you guys out. So if you're just tuning in and you haven't had an opportunity to look at the previous podcast, this is week 6, so you need to catch up with weeks 1 through 5. But listen, let me do two things before we dive into today's topic. Number one, remember a couple weeks ago, I shared with you how I was hot in my garage, right? So my husband was like, I threw him under the bus, right? Because I told you guys that he was frugal. He said he's not frugal, he's wise with money. So I want to fix that. He's wise with money, okay? So, but anyway, a few of his friends in our chat section, in our chat of our texting chat room, they were just like, yeah, Nadine, you threw him under the bus. So I just want to say, okay, Benz, guys, you notice I'm not hot because my husband put in right over there an AC. He did it. Shout out to Leon, because Leon, one of our brothers in the faith, he came over and just helped. So shout out to Leon. Leon just came through in the clutch and helped Ben's. And then he had a technician, an electrical technician, come over and do the wiring on all that stuff. But my husband went on YouTube University, figured out the tools that he needed, all the things that he needed to install an AC. And guys, I'm actually cold. I am cold in the garage because my husband went into, so when was it? I think Saturday I went to my oldest daughter's house and I spent the day over there. And then Sunday, Fabi came over. And so we went back to my oldest daughter's house and just spent some time over there. So Sunday when I came home and I'm in the bathroom, just kind of getting myself ready for bed and all of that, he said to me, he came in the bathroom and was like, how much do you love me? And you know, me, I don't like superficial stuff. So it was just like, how do you quantify love, right? So I'm just like, what? Then I got a little agitated and I was like, enough. He was like, you love me enough? I don't know how I feel about that. So I was like, I love you more than words can ever express. So he's like, okay, come with me. So I went with him into the garage and he said, how does it feel in here? And so I was just like, you know, I didn't know, I get too deep sometimes, guys. So I'm like, am I feeling out a spirit? Is there a spirit in my garage that I need to bind and cast down? So I'm like, so then it dawned on me that it was cool in the garage. And that was his surprise to me. And I was like, I love you so much. Thank you. He was like, oh, you love me for what I do for you. Well, that too, but I love you so much. So I'm cool. It's cool in the garage. You know, shout out to the people too who was like, God bless Benz, and was just in the comment section just talking about, you know, blessings on Benz, even though I threw him under the bus. My husband came through, and I will never doubt him again and what he can do. No more doubting. He can do it. And anytime he tells me, so right now he's like, okay, babe, I'm going to just redo that garage for you. I'm going to do the floor. I'm going to do the walls. And I was like, yes, you go. You do the garage, you do the floor, you do the walls. Whatever you want to do in there, you do it. I got you. Do you need my help? No. but yeah, my husband. So shout out to Benz, okay? And shout out to Leon, of course, for helping him. Okay, so that's one news I want to tell you guys so that you guys were concerned, like, I can't have you hot in that garage. We need the doses. And the heat is stopping your doses. So this week now I'm cool. The other thing is, guys, Benz and I starting next week, we're going to do a 3-part series on relationships. Yes, we're going to be sitting down with you and we're going to be discussing relationships. You know, we've been married for 16 years. We dated in high school. We you know, trial and error, victories and defeats, and just, you know, parenting, because I had a child when he came into the picture, the nuances with that. We're both strong-minded people, the nuances that comes with that. So here are some topics. I want you to know some things we're going to be covering. Okay, so y'all ready for this? We're going to be covering unequally yoked, the comparison trap. So you know how you see relationships and you're like, relationship goals. Well, some of that could be a trap, because what they're presenting is not really what it is, right? And you're trying to pursue a goal that they're not even there yet. Okay, so the comparison trap. Standards. Are you setting standards? You're a Honda Accord, but you're setting standards for a Rolls Royce. Okay, so you can't even meet the standards that you're setting. Boundaries when you're single as well as when you're married. Financial compatibility. Oneness. Going into a marriage, if you're not married, with a plan B in case this doesn't work out. Is that good or is that not good? Should you have a plan B going into a marriage, or is it just all in? Okay. Grace while dating versus grace while you're married. How much do you put up with while you're dating? Right? Healing and baggage before you even go into a marriage. Are you bringing baggage into a marriage? Are you going into a marriage having your spouse pay for what so-and-so did to you 5 years ago? Okay, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about counterfeit oneness. You know, you're dating and you're acting like you're married. So what's the incentive to get married? Counterfeit oneness. We're going to talk about red flags. What are some red flags that we should pay attention to while we're dating? Pentecostal pimps. I call it Pentecostal pimps. These are people in the church, people that are believers that you have no business getting in with, because they're wolves in sheep clothing. I'm sorry. They are wolves in sheep clothing. And we need to be aware of those wolves in sheep's clothing. Okay. Women, we're going to talk about trying to play mommy to someone that you're dating, becoming his mother and not his girlfriend, becoming his mother and not his wife. So we're going to talk about that. The types of people, you know, that you date or that you're looking to marry. I know a lot of girls, they like the bad boy image, right? Well, what is it that's really that they're really desiring when they're saying that they want a bad boy image? Is it that the guy that's going to be cursing them out and beating them and all of that? Here's a clean cut guy over here who has a job and a stable income and provide for his family and all of that. What's the difference between the two? And what is it that bad boy image is that is attractive to certain women? So we're going to talk about that. Boy versus man and girl versus woman. So truly, a man dates a girl, but he marries a woman. A woman may date a boy, but hopefully she marries a man. And so we're going to look at the nuances there. And what does marriage material look like? So if you're looking for, the Bible says that he that findeth a wife findeth a good thing. So when he found her, she had wife qualities. She was wife material. All right, well, what does that look like? And then chemistry, compatibility, and communication. So chemistry, compatibility, and communication. So those are some of the things that we're going to be looking at next week. So I want you to make sure that you tune in next week, because we're going to be, Benz and I, starting next week, over the next several weeks, we're going to be unpacking those. Okay, so here's what we're going to talk about today. And hopefully I'm going to try to make this talk brief so that we don't spend too much time in it, because I'll be covering it in weeks to come. All right. The reason why it's important that we talk about this, and it segues me into this topic that we're going to talk about, coming out of the fact that we're going to be talking about relationships starting next week, is that this thing that we're going to talk about today, having the wrong relationship, going into agreements and oneness and covenantal agreements with someone for the rest of your life can actually sabotage what we're going to talk about today. It will actually hinder what we're going to talk about today. And that's why I've told you that it's so important. The two things that's so important in life when you have to answer it is what you do with accepting or rejecting God into your life. And then the second most important thing is who you marry. Because who you marry, once you become tied with that person, it can weigh you down. It can weigh you down. It can keep you back. It can assault your call. But then definitely it can assault your purpose. Today, I want to talk about purpose. I want to talk about your purpose today. I want to talk about how do we discover purpose? Where is purpose? Who gives it? Is purpose based on what your guidance counselor told you, based on what your mother told you that you should grow up to become, based on what someone said they saw in you? Is it based on outside, what other people have said? Are you trying to live up to what someone else told you should become, told you should do, told you should be, right? Here's what purpose, let me start here. Purpose is what God has placed inside of you to contribute or impact on the world around you. That cause you, that purpose that God has placed inside of you to contribute and impact the world around you will have you feeling fulfilled and satisfying. Purpose gives meaning to your existence. It is the why behind the you. It's why you're here. What is your purpose for being here? Purpose gives you the why behind the fact that you're here. The two most important dates dates in your life is the day you were born and the day you discovered why. The day you were born and the day you discovered why. Obviously, ultimately, what we do with Jesus Christ, accept him or reject him, is the most critical date. But I'm talking outside of that. The two most important dates outside of that is the day you were born and the day you discover why. Your purpose doesn't have to be your career. It doesn't have to be a job. It doesn't have to be how you make a living. It doesn't have to be anything outside. It doesn't have to have anything to do with those things. So don't make purpose about money. I think that's where people get tripped up. They make it about how much money I'm going to earn. That's a job. That's not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about purpose. If you make purpose about money, you will spend the rest of your life chasing paper. And no matter how much you get, it will never be enough. No matter how well-being people can tell you your purpose is this, the only person that can tell you and help you discover your purpose is the one who placed it inside of you to begin with. And that is God, your creator. He created you with purpose, on purpose, and for a purpose. With purpose, on purpose, and for a purpose. He is the one, God is the one who placed purpose inside of you. And if you allow him, he will lead you on a path of discovery to discover the reason behind the you, the why that you're even here on earth. So don't live your life trying to fulfill a purpose that someone else has assigned to you. Now, there are callings. Okay, so let me just say this. There are callings that God has given to you in various seasons of your life. These callings are important because these callings help lead you and position you to discover the purpose that God has placed inside of you. So for instance, David, we see that there's a season in David's life where he is shepherding sheep. He's herding sheep. Well, while he's herding sheep, this is the time that he was penning a lot of the Psalms. But this is also a time that he learned to protect the sheep, that he learned to sacrifice himself for the sheep. So David says that when a lion came, I fought the lion. When a bear came, I fought the bear. So God was giving him opportunity to learn skill set, to learn bravery, even while he was tending to the sheep. Eventually, David became a psalmist. for King Saul. And then eventually also before that, he became a warrior. He was in King Saul's army. He was part of King Saul's psalmist, that he will play the harp to soothe the king. But later on, we see that David was anointed king. Every one of those seasons of David's life was purposed by God. Those were different callings that David was doing in different seasons of his life to prepare him for the purpose that God has had on his life, which was to be a shepherd over the nation of Israel. But first, he learned how to shepherd stubborn sheep. Then he learned how to protect the sheep. He learned how to risk his life for the sheep. God was preparing him to have a heart of a king. While it looked like what David was doing was insignificant, God often hides purpose in what we consider to be insignificant. It's the little mundane calls. It's the obscurity things, the obscure things in life that God presents to you, and it looks like menial, it looks mundane, but God is trying to test your heart. Will you be faithful in the small so he can graduate you to the big? So sometimes you're looking for a job to fulfill your purpose, but it's just a calling for that season. And God can use these seasons, these callings in our lives to position us. Matter of fact, God often used the callings that he has for us in various seasons of our lives to position us for the purposes that he has for our lives. You know, one of the things I noticed about King David in the Bible says that there was a time that he was on the run from King Saul. This is before he ever became king. This is while he was serving King Saul. King Saul turned on him because King Saul became jealous of David. And David is on the run. He's hiding in caves. He's in fear of his life. This is after he's been anointed king, and he's sleeping in a cave. And even that, can I say, was all part of God's plan to develop David in every season of his life to become one of the greatest kings of Israel. So do not despise even the most difficult seasons. And we talked about that last week, so I'm not going to go into it this week. Because no season is a wasted season in the hands of God. And so even the seasons that you think are difficult and the seasons that you think are mundane, God even has an assignment for you and for myself in those seasons of life to lead us into purpose. Remember Moses. Moses was hidden in the Nile while discovered by Pharaoh's daughter. Pharaoh has put out a decree, kill all the young boys, even on the birthing stool while they're being born, kill all of them. Moses' mother hides him. She hides him in one of the most dangerous places ever. And that's the Nile River that is filled with crocodiles, especially at this time. But that's where she hides Moses. And while Moses is streaming down this Nile River, this crocodile-infested river, Pharaoh, the same one who puts out a decree to have Moses killed along with all the other boys, his daughter from his same household sees this baby, takes this baby in, and raises him as her own. God hides Moses in the same house of the same man that decrees to kill his life. Why was Moses so secure in that house, not knowing that this man puts out a decree to take out his life? Because when it's God's purpose, no man can stop a God purpose in your life. Doesn't matter what's going on around you. Doesn't matter of the crocodile infestations around you in life. When it's a God purpose on your life, there is no human being, no decree that can go out can stop a God purpose that is upon your life. That's why God opens door no man can shut. God will open up a door in front of you. If you're meant to walk through that door, no man can shut that door. Only thing that can happen is that you refuse to walk through the doors, the very doors that God has placed before you. Moses was hidden in plain sight because he was purposed to be there. Why? Because he had to learn he had to be equipped and trained and learn the ways of the Egyptians. He was going to learn the ways of the very leader that he was going to take out. God was teaching him the strategy of the very leader, strategic ways about this very leader that one day that he would take out. Moses was the right person to stand before Pharaoh because he knew all about him. He was raised as his grandson. So he knew all about him. It wasn't for Aaron. It was for Moses, even though Moses was trying to push it off on his brother Aaron. But that purpose was assigned to Moses. And listen, there are things that we try to push off on other people. We try to hide from it. We try to say, oh, no, God. But if it's for you, you're the only one that's going to be able to do it. Now, yes, there are people that go to the grave with their purpose still on the inside of them. They never tapped into it. They never stepped into it. Fear or whatever reason caused them not to step into their God purpose. And we know that the cemetery is filled with people, authors who never wrote a book. Presidents, perhaps, who never became president. Singers who never sang a song. Lyricists who never wrote a lyric. All these artists who never scripted an art or created art because they died and kept that purpose on the inside of them. That's why they said the cemetery is the richest place on earth, because you have all these abilities that were never expounded upon. And so I want to encourage you to start, and we're going to talk about how to discover our purpose. I mean, this is not an end all. This is, it's time of us conversing about this, but we're going to talk about some of those things today. While we are out trying to discover, many of us, our gifts and our talents, what we should be praying to God and asking him for, help me to discover my purpose. Help me to discover the reason why I'm here. The why behind the me. You see, because purpose will get you from the background to the foreground. Purpose will get you. Remember when Samuel came to anoint King David. Before he was king, he was taking care of the shepherd. He was in the field. He was out taking care of sheep in the field. And when Samuel came to anoint, and David's father lines up all his sons that he thought these are the sons that could be the next king of Israel. He didn't even think of David, who was in the field. And Samuel said, no, none of these are it. They got the look, but they don't have the heart. And so he said, well, I have one son, but I don't think you're looking for him. He's out in the field. He's just a shepherd boy, small, ruddy, nothing. And Samuel said, bring him here. And the Bible says that when he placed the flask over David's head, it began to trickle, it began to tinkle, it began to shake, because that was the one that was anointed to be the next king of Israel. Listen, God will take you from the outhouse into the house. He will find you on the backside of a desert like Moses and anoint you there to be the next leader. He will find you out in the shepherd in the field, taking care of sheep, and anoint you to be the next king of Israel. You don't have to worry about, well, I'm hidden, no one is seeing me. God sees you. You just have to be obedient to whatever it is that God is wanting to do in your life. Be faithful in the season that he has you in, so he can unfold the plans and the purposes that he has for you. The reason why you're still here is because God has a purpose for your life. The reason why you were birthed and you couldn't have been aborted and you weren't a stillborn is because God has a purpose for your life. The reason why all of them got caught up in this and that, but you're still standing. The reason why what happened to you didn't kill you, all is because you are supposed to be here. What are you doing with that suppose? What are you doing with the fact that you're still here? Are you spending most of your time just watching social media? Scrolling, looking at everybody else do their stuff? Or are you spending most of your time watching all the series on TV? The next series, this series, that series, Netflix binge, and Netflix overload. What are you doing with that? I just don't find successful people operating in their purpose, spending their time wasting it. Wasting the precious, valuable time that they have been gifted with. What do you do? It doesn't matter. You could be saying, well, I'm looking around and there's no purpose around me. No, purpose is in you to make an impact to that which is around you. No matter what continent you're on, no matter the economic status that you're in, none of those things can stop a God-given purpose. And dare I say, according to Ephesians 2, chapter 10, chapter 2, verse 10, everyone has a God-given purpose. If you're alive, there is a God-given purpose that's on the inside of you. And I came to stoke that fire. You remember Jeremiah in the book of Jeremiah in the Bible. They were mistreating him. They were doing all sorts of stuff to him, and he was tired and he wanted to give up because it was too much against him. And he said when he vowed to himself that I'm not going to preach about God anymore. Remember, Jeremiah was sanctified. He was set apart from his mother's womb. He was called from his mother's womb. God told him, read Jeremiah chapter 1 and you'll see what I'm talking about. God said, when you were in your mother's womb, I saw you and I called you and I anointed you. I purposed for you to be the prophet of the nation of Israel. And now Jeremiah is saying, I'm tired of what I'm going through. I'm tired of them trying to kill me and them trying to do all sorts of stuff to me. He said he vowed to himself, I'm not going to talk about God anymore. I'm not going to prophesy about him anymore. I'm not going to speak about him anymore. But because purpose, here's what Jeremiah said, but it was like fire shut up in my bones. I couldn't help but talk about, even if it was a risk of my life. Martin Luther King said, I knew I was going to die. I know that I'm about to die. I mean, look at his last speech. I've been to the mountaintop. He said, I look out. I know my end is coming, but I'm okay with that because I would rather die. I'd rather die for what I believe, and instead of living for something that doesn't align with the purposes of God upon my life. Mandela, they said, just recant what you said and we'll let you out of this prison. He said to live outside of the purpose of which I'm here for, which is the freedom of my people. He said that to him is death. It's worse than prison. And he served 27 years behind what he believed his purpose was, which was to be a sign of liberation, a model of liberation, a proclaimer of liberation for the people of South Africa. Come on. There is something on the inside of you. Okay. Whew. Guys. Yes. So let me say this. And then I'll go into this and then we'll close, okay? We're talking about purpose inside of you. So a group went to Kenya. And I know we have a lot of my African family that's watching from the continent of Africa, okay? Who have been through so much. And yet they're still standing. The resiliency of that continent, of the people, the nations, that's represented in the continent of Africa. Listen, in Kenya, there's a group of people that went there to serve, to minister. These were believers. And the people were dying in Kenya because they were dying of due to lack of water. I forgot the name of the village that was in Kenya, but it was this is many years ago, it was due to a lack of water. And so the people came there and they drilled pumps so that water can come out for this particular area, village. Here's the thing. The people who came there, who went into Kenya in this particular area to drill holes and to open up the waterways so that they can pump water, they didn't bring water. They just dug a hole. They dug deep to tap into where the water source was so that the water that was already there can come up. Can I tell you that the water was under the people's feet in that particular village in Kenya? The water was already there. They just had to dig deep. Can I tell you, the purposes of God is already in you. You just have to dig deep. No one brings it to you. All we do is drill a hole. Oh, come on. And tap into what is already on the inside of you. Can I tell you what helps you drill holes? Difficulty, hardships, battles. David said, I had to fight a bear. And when a lion came, I had to fight a lion. David didn't know God was preparing him to learn how to fight. He was one of Israel's greatest army, the greatest commanders. That's why Saul became jealous, because Paul kills his thousands, but David, he kills his tens of thousands. He was a man of war, of battle. He had battle strategy that came from God. What? He was going through the battle while he was taking care of sheep. There's battles that you're going through and that you're like, no. People who have left that God is trying to teach you, when they reject you, I'm trying to teach you how to accept yourself. When they fight against you, I'm trying to teach you resilience, because you're going to need it. Because when the light starts shining on you, you're going to need character. You're going to need integrity. You're going to need to have the stamina to withstand the heat from that light. When people start rejecting you, that's the heat from the light. Even when people start applauding you, you're going to be able to have to withstand the pride that can come from that light. Oh, who am I talking to today? Oh my gosh. If this is for me, then this is just for me. But if it's for all of us, then just say, this is for me today. Listen, tap into what God has already placed inside of you. Okay, let me give you a few thoughts, okay? I want to give you this little progress of stepping into or discovering your purpose, right? First of all, what you need to know, I want to look at the life of Moses, because first you go into a place of where God kind of discovers you, right? Where he makes it known that I see you, right? So this is discover you, what God has purposed in you. This discovery, you may be saying, well, no one sees me, no one knows about me. But remember, Moses was on the backside of a desert when God approaches him. David was in the sheep, taking care of the sheep, when Samuel said, there's one of your sons that's missing. Somebody's missing from here. Esther, she was in exile in Susha. She was, her parents had died. She was being taken care of by her uncle Mordecai. Purpose was on the inside of her, and it shifted her into the palace. It doesn't matter where you are. You don't have to suck up to people. You don't have to kiss up to people. You don't have to power up to people for God to discover you. God has already, he sees you. And at the appointed time, here's what God, in hiding, God is developing you for what he has for you. We sometimes try to put ourselves out there, and God is saying it's not time yet. Because if the spotlight goes on you now, you're going to melt. You're going to crush underneath that spotlight. So let me take my time to develop you. Yield to the process. So that when it's time, you are, guys. All right, hold on. So there's a place of discovery. Then once you're discovered, God goes into a place of development. So discover, develop. You're being developed internally. God is preparing you so you can be ready and not have to get ready when he releases you. That's a whole nother story. God was preparing Moses behind enemy lines. He will prepare you in the seasons where you think he's quiet. No season is a wasted season. God will use what you think is insignificant to prepare you for what he has for you. Remember Karate Kid, the movie? If you don't know it, just go and watch it. In that movie, Mr. Miyagi was preparing the Karate Kid. He had him cleaning cars, waxing cars. He had him painting fences. And one day, the Karate Kid got upset with Mr. Miyagi. He said, I came here for you to teach me how karate so that I can stop being bullied by these guys that's trying to beat me up every day. And I can enter, and eventually he'll enter into a battle with these same guys. He said, but all you have me doing is cleaning and painting. And he was upset and ready to go because the season looked insignificant. But what Mr. Miyagi had to teach him was every brush that he was doing was a move, a technique that he was learning. Every wax that he was doing, wax on, that was a move that he was giving him strategy of how to defeat his enemy when they would come with blows and with jabs. What I'm trying to tell you is in this season, God is teaching you waxing, wax on, wax off, stroke up, stroke down to prepare you for any blows that will come before you or come at you when you're walking in your purpose. Every season is a purposeful season when you are purposed by God, and all of us are purposed by God. He's building you for what he has for you. So that is a development process. He will use criticisms to develop you. He will use people abandoning you to develop you. It's not about your scripture knowledge. That's great. But it's more than that. It's the things that we go through in life. It's the things that we go through in life that the scripture knowledge accompanies those things, those experiences that we walk through in life, so that you can be able to travail and be successful in the purposes that God has assigned to your life and to my life. So he develops you. Then he defines you. Things don't define you. God defines you. Labels don't define you. You were developed in Pharaoh's house, but Pharaoh's house did not define Moses. You were educated among the mental elites, but your education doesn't define you. What's inside of you, what God has placed inside of you, his spirit inside of you, what God says about you, those are the things that defines you. The label on the water bottle doesn't define you. You know that you can have a water bottle that has a certain label. It can say Fiji water, but you put juice, or let me say, you put Coke in that bottle. Even though the label says one thing, it's what's inside the bottle that defines the content of that particular bottle and the use of its bottle. It's not going to be used to do what water does. It's going to be used to do what Sprite or what Coke does. It's the content that's inside that's important, not the labels that people put on the outside. Take off the labels that people has placed on you and identify yourself for who God says you are and what God says about you. So he defines you. And then after he's discovered you, developed you, and defined you, he deploys you. Doesn't matter who don't know you, who won't help you, who don't like you. When it's time for you to be deployed by God, when it's time for you to be released by God, when it's time for you to be sent out by God, no demon in hell can stop you. When God says now, it's now. This is why you want to go through the process, so that when God releases you, you're ready. You're not saying, whoa, God, wait, let me get ready. Because I'm not ready before. I don't have the right clothes. I don't have the right. Those things are not what. God is not looking for your clothes. He's looking on, did you walk through the stage of development on what's inside of you, so I can use you and deploy you into what I have for you. It's God's timing. Your willingness to yield to the preparation process will make the timing, will be the difference maker when it's time for God to release you. Sometimes you haven't experienced enough battles yet. You haven't experienced enough yet for God to release you. It may be in you, but it's not the right timing. You need some battle experiences to develop your character. You need some defeats underneath your belt to develop perseverance. You need more opposition, closed doors to teach you how to push through, rejection to teach you how to accept yourself, the attacks to teach you how to endure. You got to go through some things, and it will sharpen you for the purposes that God has in you. You see, it's not what you're doing, is what you're purposed to do. And your faithfulness positions you for that purpose. David was purposed to be Israel's next shepherd. And so he was taught patience, endurance, and the same with Moses. I want to give you some tips, okay? A few tips for you with this in this area of purpose. Be faithful where God has you. Guard yourself from bitterness and resentment and pride and complaint and gossip. These things will tangle and choke out the purposes of God for you. It is hard for God to deploy and unleash a bitter person. You can't properly impact the world around you with a bitter heart. You taint the world around you with a bitter heart. Be careful what you say yes to and what you say no to. Saying yes to opportunities because it's a way for you to be seen, and no to opportunities because it's causing you to serve people. Be careful of that. Sometimes what looks like glamour and gold is an assault against your purpose. Don't be so easy to shun opportunities that comes in ways for you to serve people. God is developing a servant's heart. Why? Because that's what God is about. He's about serving people. Jesus came. He sent Jesus to serve mankind. He said, Jesus said, I didn't come to be served. I came to serve, to be a ransom, to serve my life for the mankind, for the world. So he's here for you. So be careful when you're looking for limelights or people to serve you or opportunities that looks glamorous. When you start looking for those kind of opportunities, all sorts of stuff will present itself to you. And it could be a sabotage on the call and the destiny that God has for you. Man's purpose is self, but God's purpose for our lives will always be others. Be careful of self-promotion, trying to be seen by people. Be confident, but let your character, your integrity, and your work speak for itself, not you promoting yourself. Your gifts that God has given you will make room for you. Just use them to bring honor to God and to serve people. And God will promote you in due season. When all doors are closed and all people forsake you, that's when you start discovering what's on the inside of you. So ask yourself, on this road of discovering your purpose, ask yourself, what are you most passionate about? God sometimes places a desire in you that's linked to a purpose that he has for you. We call it a passion, but it's a desire that God has placed on the inside of you that's linked to his purposes for you. That's why Jeremiah said, I couldn't. It was like fire shut up in my bones. I had to preach. I had to prophesy. I had to proclaim because he was passionate about it. So start asking yourself, what are you passionate about? What is it that you feel a strong feeling about an injustice? Sometimes those are some signs that God is pointing to a purpose for you being here on earth. So don't ignore certain injustices that stirs your heart and stirs your passion to want to make a difference and be a difference concerning that injustice, because that injustice and your response to that injustice could be why you're here, i.e. Martin Luther King, i.e. Nelson Mandela, so many others that used their lives for injustices that were happening around them and even in the world. When you find out what that is about injustices, begin to become learned in that area. Do your research in that area. Educate yourself concerning that area. And then perhaps if opportunity allows, serve. Even if it's volunteer time, serve in that area. And that could be one of the things that leads you into the passions the purpose that God has for you. Now, be careful with injustices, because sometimes with injustice, if you don't have the right heart, you can become a bit bitter and hateful and very resenting. A God purpose doesn't cause you to become bitter and hateful. Not a God purpose. Your purpose for your life will tend to do that. But God purpose will spark love and passion to make a difference, to help others, to educate people. Yeah, you might have strong feelings about the injustices that are taking place, but we need to make sure that we go about making a difference of those injustices with the heart of God. With the heart of God. Okay, and we serve a God who's passionate, who's a just God, who's a merciful God. Yes, and he hates injustice, but he's not going around hating people in the process. Okay, listen to what other people appreciate about you. It could be attached to your purpose, that they're just kind of, man, you're so good at this, and I love how you do this, and things of that nature. And it could be a little ding, a little sign of what you are called to do. And then go to God with it. You know, always go to God, and just ask him, what's the why behind the me? Your purpose is hidden in him. And so you can't discover it outside of him. God-given purposes. Okay? And so what you want to do is just go to God and ask him, what's the why behind the me? Why am I here? Two most important dates is the day I was born and the day I discover why. Okay, what's my why, God? Reveal it to me. All the things that I've gone through in my life, the losses, the tragedies, the ups, the downs, the victories, the defeats. And you say no season is a wasted season. Okay, so with all those experiences, how do they contribute to the purposes that you have for my life? God, reveal it to me. Show it to me. And then in the meantime, serve. And don't serve only in the areas that you're gifted in. Sometimes you serve out of a need. They say that there's a need over here or in the community or whatever, and you make yourself available. And in you just serving community and serving mankind, you discover your purpose. You giving of yourself is a trail that helps you discover your purpose. And then do not disregard telling your story. You know, there's power in your story. Doesn't matter what everyone's story is different. There is no story, no two stories that are the same. None. Okay? Everyone's story is different. Tell your story. And yes, your story is still being written. It's being written by a great storyteller. And that's God himself. If you yield to each chapter that he's writing a story with your life. And all we do is we yield to the story. We yield to the chapter and let the author, you know, the Bible says he's the author and the finisher. He knows what he's writing concerning your life. You just go to him. You yield in every season. You are faithful in every season. You allow him to develop you in every season. You embrace every season. You are present in every season. You guard your heart from bitterness and hate and all these things that come to corrode our heart so you can channel, so that he can channel his purposes for your life through your life, right? And so all of that is being done. And what God is doing, he's writing your story. He's writing a beautiful story out of your life. And your story that he's writing is going to always impact the stories of others around you. My story is to inspire your story. My story, my life, is to inspire your life. It's to inspire you to believe, and to believe that you can, and to believe that there is a purpose for your life, that there's a plan for your life. It doesn't matter what you've been through. You're still here. And God is not finished. He's still writing the stories, the story, the purpose for your life. So it's to inspire you to believe. It's to inspire you to overcome what they said, what they did, what they thought, how they ostracized you, how they alienated you, how they talked about you, how they stiff-armed you, how they rejected you. Man, it is to help you to overcome all of that and overcome you. Because sometimes it's not even them. It's what you partner in your mind about yourself. I can't. I'm not this enough. I'm not that. So it's to inspire you to overcome and then inspire you to go, to move from where you are into the next that God has for you. Man, that's why I love reading your comments. I read every single last one of them. It's a lot. So it takes a little time, but I go through each and every one of them and I do pray for you. Honest to God, I do pray for you. But it also helps me to see your story. It helps me to get behind the name, and to know that these are real people that are watching from various continents, from various countries, from their various cities and states that God has a purpose for. And my heart is, no matter where they are, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Uganda, Ghana, Nigeria, Australia, Brazil, Europe, America, Mississippi, Birmingham, the UK, South Florida, New York, Georgia. I mean, wherever you're tuning in from, there is a why behind the you, and geographical locations does not stop you from stepping into the purposes that God has for you. Dare I say, the family you were born in, the circumstances you were born in. Perhaps you were raised in an orphanage. Perhaps you were adopted. And even that does not stop God's purpose for your life. The fact that you're still here is because God assigned it to be so. And there's no human being that can stop a God purpose that is on the inside of you. Doesn't matter when you discover that purpose. Doesn't matter how short of years you live on earth or how long years you live on earth. The fact that you are born, the time that you're here, God wants to use your life to inspire, to impact, to love, to give to those around you. Whether it's a child, a teenager, or an adult, it does not matter. There's a purpose for every aspect, every season of your life. And my heart, my prayer, my heart's desire is that you would begin to go on a road of discovery. You may even think that you know your purpose. And God is saying, there's more to it than that. So I pray that you would discover. If you already think that you know your purpose, I pray that you would discover the more that has yet to be discovered. That God would lead you into the more, that you would tap into all that God has for you, that you would yield to the process, that you would not shun the difficulty, but you would ask God, give me a revelation for this difficulty, and stop asking God about the why concerning the difficulty. We spend too much time asking God the why and not asking him the revelation. We're asking the wrong question. We're asking, what's my talent? What's my gift? And God is saying, really? You should be asking me for your purpose, because that's greater than the talent and the gift. That's your reason for being. Your reason for being born. Whew. Guys, oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to stop here. I am, because I don't want this to be just too much information for you to regurgitate. I just want to be careful of the mind can take but so much. But in the coming weeks, after we go through the relationship series and all of that, in the coming weeks, I will be digging into here and there, dabbing into this concept of purpose. Let me leave you with this. God creates a thing by starting with its end. Hear me. God creates a thing by starting with the end. The end is the purpose. So a chair, this chair that I'm sitting on, the manufacturer had the end in mind first before it created the chair. So that's how it knew what it needed, because the goal was for someone to be able to sit on this chair, right? So it needed the armrest, it needed the back rise, it needed the legs and all of that. So the end was thought of first before the chair was created. Your end was thought of first before God created you. So you were created with a purpose in mind. The Bible says, before the foundations of the earth, your purpose was already finished. The reason for you being was already completed by God, the author and the finisher. So now he backs up after he creates, he knows the purpose for the why behind the you. Now he comes here and now he starts to unfold the different seasons of your life, the call that he calls you to in different seasons of your life. All of that is leading you to the end goal. That's why you don't deny, you don't push off every season of your life, because each season is a preparation. It's leading to the bigger picture of your purpose. Here's the thing, guys. We must be attached to the manufacturer. If I'm off course, I need to go back to the manufacturer and say, okay, I need to get back in line because I don't really know the purpose for my life, but you do. So would you shift me back? So if this chair is not working, if it's not working the way it was intended to work, I'm not able to sit on it, I'm calling back the manufacturer. I'm getting a hold of the manufacturer, because they're the one who designed it. She's the one who designed it. And so they will know why it's not working to its full capacity. If you are not operating to your full capacity, then you have to go to the manufacturer. It's not your guidance counselor. It's not your mother. It's not the teacher. Those are great, and they may give you great encouraging words and all of that, but you got to go back to the manufacturer, because your purpose is hidden in him. That's God. And say, lead me, guide me. He says that he knows the plans and the purposes he has for you. Just read Jeremiah 29:11. Just read it. Yes, it's concerning Israel, but the principle is stuck in the verse. So just read it. Okay? That's God's heart for you. All right. So we're going to end here. I hope this was helpful to somebody. Okay? Discovering your purpose. Find out what you're passionate about. Serve in your passion, but don't disregard needs that come around that you may be able to serve there. You may not be passionate about it, but you're going to discover something in you that you didn't even know was there because you're operating outside of what you would have normally, what you'd be normally passionate about. So it's in everything God can lead us to the purposes he has for us, but you just got to yield to the process and trust in the manufacturer, the one who created the purpose for you to begin with. Okay? God bless you guys. Love you guys. Listen, get back with me next week, Saturday. Okay? Next week, Saturday, because we're going to be starting our relationship series. So you're going to get to finally meet Benz. I'm the talker. He's the quiet one. So he's like, oh my gosh, but he'll be fine. I'll do most of no, I won't. We'll both talk. All right, so that's next week. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast and share it out. And then for the YouTube followers, family, love reading your comments. So make sure you're in the comment section, just sharing a bit there. I want to encourage the person that thought that their life was useless and meaningless. I cancel that lie. It's from the pit of hell. You know why Satan went after Joseph in the Bible? It wasn't just about Joseph. He was afraid that Joseph would discover what was inside of him. I think when these lies come into our lives to tell us that we'll never be anything, my circumstance around me is just too negative, and there's just no life around me. And so therefore I could never become anyone, do anything significant, make an impact with my life. That's a lie from the pit of hell to get you discouraged enough that you won't even yield to what's on the inside, that you won't even dig deep to get into the tap into that water source, that you won't even ask God the question, what is my purpose? What is it that you have for me, God? Would you lead me to it? Guide me to it. I trust you for the way. So I just want to speak to you for a moment and encourage you that you will live out your purpose, that you will not only live it out, but you will also discover it. And you will make it an impact. You will make an impact on the world around you, wherever that world is for you, whatever sphere of influence you're in, whatever corner of the globe that God has you in, that you will make an impact, be it within your corner, globally, nationally, internationally, however God wants to use you. It's his call. It's his purpose for your life, not yours, his. And so I want to encourage you. I shift that narrative. I just speak that narrative of you're not this enough, not that enough, and God doesn't have a plan and a purpose for your life. I cancel that narrative. I cancel it. And I speak life to the narrative that God has for you, that he has called you and purposed you, that you are chosen for such a time as this, that you are lovely, that you are beautiful, that you were set apart from your mother's womb, that you had to be here. You couldn't have been aborted. You couldn't have been a stillborn. Whether it was an orphanage that raised you or your biological parents that raised you or they left you or a cousin or an aunt, it doesn't even matter who raised you. God is the one who sees you and placed a purpose on the inside of you. And I pray that he will breathe life and he will call what is obscure right now into certainty. That he will bring you from obscurity into notoriety. That he will call you from the back of the house to the front of the house. That he will call you from the background to the foreground. That he will go after you and find you. Whatever backside of the desert that you're on in life, that he will meet you there and give you the call and the purposes that he has for you. And the doors he opened for you, no human being and no circumstance will be able to shut. Now, my prayer for you is that you will yield to that process, that you will yield to the processes and the purposes that God has for you and protect your heart along the way. God bless you. Love you. See you next week. Bye-bye.